That right there is me taking a long, deep breath. It's also the sound of what today's guests sell. It's time to take a deep breath and tune in, or out, to episode 475 of the award-winning Small Business Big Marketing Show, thanks to American Express.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show, where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of marketing meditations. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, you're a motivated business owner and you're ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the absolute empire it deserves to be. Today's very chilled 475th episode of the show, it's made possible thanks to the good guys at American Express business cards that can both smooth out your cash flow and have you flying on your next holiday sooner. And we all want a bit of that, right? Guess what? Big show today. We meet a couple who make a living out of teaching kids to breathe. Yep, a little bit more on them in a minute. Another motivated listener wins big in this week's Monster Prize draw thanks to a very questionable marketing strategy. And you'll find out a little bit about next week's guest who came back from an autoimmune disease that nearly crippled his business. As per usual, team, there's marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. A few months ago, my girlfriend Sarah told me about this couple, Bodhi and Kat, who run a business called the Breathe Project, travelling around Australia teaching school-aged kids to breathe properly. Like, that is literally all they do. My first reaction was, that's awesome. What a beautifully simple business. I love hearing the different ways people make money. My second reaction was, what a great idea. There should be more of it. Why weren't they teaching that in my school when I was there 100 years ago? I want to interview them. Now, I don't know about you, but I am a shocking breather, shallow and from the chest, as opposed to deep and from the belly. I've even got myself an Apple Watch that reminds me every hour to breathe. It's crazy. What's the world coming to? So just recently, Sarah and I were wandering through the Noosa Farmers Market, and she says, "Hey, Timbo, I think that's the guys from the Breathe Project." It was. We have a chat, get to know them, and I invite them onto the show. So what is the Breathe Project, I hear you ask? Well, it's the fastest growing wellbeing initiative in Australia and New Zealand schools. Bodhi and Kat go into schools and teach this one simple breathing technique which helps students and their teachers get rid of stress and anxiety. And that's it. How beautifully simple and how needed. Bodhi and Kat joined Sarah and myself in my Noosa studio, where they talk about why we all need to learn to breathe better, how the business came to be, what being on purpose feels like, and boy are these guys on purpose, what they find hard and easy about being in business, how they've used crowdfunding to launch and finance their growth, how they get into schools, and what marketing works best for them. Oh, by the way, the S and F bomb is dropped a few times during this chat, so if you've got kids in the car, you better put them in the boot. So, enough of me. Here's the Breathe Project's Bodhi and Kat. So, Bodhi and Kat, welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show.
Thanks. Thanks
you.
for having us in here.
Well, it's awesome that we can be face-to-face and having this discussion.
Lucky we're all local in paradise.
Correct. And Sarah,
Hi, Tim.
It's so awesome to have a co-host because there's going to be some intelligent questions asked for once
good.
on my
glad
show.
that I can contribute that.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. I have absolutely no doubt. Now, Bodhi,
Yes.
I have something to read to you, which you posted on your Facebook maybe a week or two ago, and it goes something like this. Once the vision for the Breathe project was semi-clear, Kat and I sold and cleared out 80% of our belongings. She quit her job at Sunshine Coast Uni and I started saying no to other work opportunities. We moved into our van, had one drawer of clothes each and took off into the wind. It was not an easy transition. Kat and I had only been living together for 3 months. The shit got intense. So, guys, tell us about the launch of the Breathe project.
Oh, that time was really intense. We hadn't worked together.
We literally just met.
We hadn't lived together, we'd just started living together. There was all of this business stuff that we were coming together on, business plan, trying to do this, trying to figure out how we were going to launch Breathe Project. So it brought us closer, but also like moving into the van once we launched was an intense experience.
Well, before we get to the van, because I'm sitting here with Sarah and I'm sure you're thinking exactly the same thing as me. It's like you were together for 3 months and then you decided to embark on this incredible journey. What were you doing beforehand and how did the idea of starting a business and taking off come about?
Directly beforehand, we were actually on opposite sides of the world.
Right.
I was over in India doing a spirit journey through the Himalayas. Bodhi was in Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat here on the Sunshine Coast. And we actually both had a very similar vision for Breathe Project. And we were not in communication at the time. And when we finally were, and Bodhi's telling me this whole idea, and maybe you can share more on that, but I've got this idea and you've got to be in on it. And God, it's funny, I wrote down something similar to that just a couple of days ago. And so when I came back to the Sunshine Coast, and in that time, Bodhi had moved into my house. We'd only met...
Geez, you're a quick mover.
Yeah.
Hey?
I was in Brisbane. I had to move back to the Sunshine Coast. It was just like I got to get up there.
Yeah.
We'd only met 3 months prior, and so we came home and it was like, that's it. There was too many synchronicities to ignore it.
Yeah.
It was just like, no, we've got to do this. And so there was no plan Bs. It was like, we're all in. We're clearing out our stuff, moving out of our home, quitting our side jobs, going all in.
What were your side jobs? You were working at a uni, weren't you?
Well, I just not long graduated. I was working at the uni, but I had a whole bunch of jobs. I was doing some like character building work, and I was working on a whale watching boat at some point, and I was teaching acrobatics, and I was just
all fairly standard jobs.
What did you study at uni?
Health science with a major in health promotion. So this, like, our business is essentially my first job in the actual field after graduation.
That's really inspiring. Yeah.
And it was so against my belief. I was like quite traditional. No, you graduate from university and then you go and get a job in the industry and you get some experience and find your way around. And then maybe, like I always wanted to start my own initiative eventually, and then I was just being thrown into it. And
why not do it straight away?
We just did it.
Well, you are two very different individuals, because I know when I was talking to Bodhi yesterday in a little bit of a pre-interview, he said, yeah, look, I'm sort of like the free-thinking realist, a bit of a rebel, kind of guy who said, fuck school. And Kat, well, she's more organised. She's the organised perfectionist, very proper, likes to test everything. That's an awesome partnership.
Yeah. We complement each other well.
That's actually, what's brung us to the point of even being in schools, because before meeting Kat, I wanted to bring something to schools. I wanted to bring something to teenagers especially, and to kids, but I was too against it. I was against the system too much. I was the person on the outside complaining of how shit house it is and how much change there needs to be and how this doesn't work and what are we doing this for, that I couldn't actually face stepping into that place.
Yeah, right.
So when I met Kat and I knew she could communicate this and she could actually, speak the language that needed to be spoken in order for us to walk through those doors,
that's how
I was just like, oh my goodness, we can actually do this work from the inside.
It's a perfect partnership, isn't it?
It
really
is. Synchronicity.
Yeah.
Sarah and I like a bit of synchronicity.
Yeah.
You got to trust. I mean, some of my listeners go, oh, here goes Timbo's on the woo-woo wagon. And sometimes I do that. Like I had a guest in yesterday, one of Australia's leading, Queensland's leading personal trainer, very rational guy. He said to me, like, not into the woo-woo. Everything has to be tested. And I get that. but I think sometimes too. I think synchronicity is a really interesting concept, whether it's in life or business. Do you want to explain what synchronicity is and how it's worked for you?
I'd love to share about the synchronicities that we had before we actually started Breathe Project and how that sort of gave us the confidence, I guess, to keep just following that, to keep showing up to more and more and more synchronicities, to keep trust in it. So I met Kat in a breathing workshop that I was teaching at a yoga festival, Sunshine Coast Yoga Fest. I was up on stage, she was in the audience. I'm walking through helping people out with this sort of partner breathing exercise, and I looked down at her ankle and she's got Breathe tattooed on her ankle. That's a good starting line then, I can really,
You're smooth.
Here's my conversation starter.
Well, we'd already seen each other the weekend before, but not met at Dan Millman. Do you guys know Way of the Peaceful Warrior, the author?
Yeah.
So we were at a Mind Body Mastery training of his, and we saw each other at this event of hundreds of people. And then the following weekend to actually meet like that. Oh, wow. So keep going.
Yeah, so like synchronicities to me have been what have kept me and us like going, kept us going, because that showed like, there's something else going on here. Yeah, she's beautiful. Yeah, I connect with her in that way, but there's something deeper going on.
Well, for us, and I think synchronicity for us, Sarah, too, is like the universe can't physically tap you on the shoulder. So you've kind of got to look at synchronistic moments where things happen. You go, ooh, that's weird. She's like into that and I'm into that. That's synchronistic. But you've got to pace. You've got to give that some weight.
Absolutely. Gives you this inner faith, I think.
Yeah. So so 3 months in, you go, we're going to do it. We're going to take off. The idea that you both had separately, was it to take breathing to schools? Was it that simple? You'd written it down separately in some form and then met.
Yeah.
I don't know if mine was breathing specifically.
Here we go. She's getting specific now, Bo.
It was more health promotion as a whole. But to me, it had to be something about helping young people realise that they're really powerful and that they can create change in their life and they can create in general in their lives. And because I've always been a bit of like the goody two-shoes, but also kind of use that to my advantage to still, I suppose, work the system to get what I want to get, to get my own way.
Yeah, why not?
I was the middle child. I had to learn how to do that early,
Yeah.
And so, for me, it was really about actually teaching young people that they can do that. It's like, hey, you don't have to be best friends with your teacher, but be in with them enough so that they're on your side, or, those sorts of, and just the foundation of a life skill was what I really wanted to teach. So it wasn't breathing specifically, but...
So you guys have the idea, is it at this point that you then went to the crowdfunding site Chuffed to raise money to get your business off the ground?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I think this is brilliant.
So,
I think every business owner should go to a crowdfunding site and raise money. Help me start a business.
And awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness was the biggest thing that it brought for us, not just the financials.
But you couldn't have done it without the financials.
Of course.
So did you have a feeling for how much you needed to raise in order to get started? Was that really obvious to you?
We actually had a bigger figure than what we raised, much bigger, because our dream was huge. Yeah. So we were writing this huge dream out, and when it started coming in slowly, we're thinking, oh shit, what? How are we going to do anything? How is this going to happen? But over time, we started to just actually, get more than enough to do what we needed to do to start, which was to just hit the road and get in schools.
You got 15 grand. How much did you want?
I think we had a vision up there for a few million.
I love it.
55 was
our
like the
first
minimum.
Yeah.
And then we had a trail going up from that, like if it was higher, what we would actually spend that money on.
Why? Just out of interest, why should people give you money to start a for-profit business? Because, it's sort of a social cause, but it's for profit. It's not a not-for-profit, right?
Yeah.
So, why?
Backing big ideas.
Belief.
Cool.
Belief. And because how many people sit on the outside complaining and don't have the courage to actually do something themselves. Yes. So they're seeing courage, they're seeing will, they're seeing young, relatable, they're seeing potential of this.
Yep.
So they're backing that potential because they know that that's in them as well.
What did you give them in return? Because those crowdfunding
Nothing.
sites... Nothing?
We had no
But on those
perks.
crowdfunding sites on down the right-hand
the
side...
perks.
there's
We
all-
didn't do
We
perks.
decided not to because we didn't want this flaky energy, this flaky exchange of like, yeah, and you give us $50 and we'll give you a T-shirt. It's like, well, our business is not about selling T-shirts. So we don't want to sell this T-shirt to you for $50 and make $10 towards the mission.
Mm-hmm.
We want all of the money to actually be directly invested in us hitting the road and going into schools. So return, your return on investment is that we're doing it right now today. We're actually in a lot of those parents and those teachers that backed us, those people that backed us.
Making a difference.
We're in there doing it.
And people obviously believe that, that was a big part of them giving. So what were the key donations? Were they big amounts or small?
One was $5,000.
Oh, hello.
But this man that decided to do $5,000, it was a match. So it was towards the end, and he said, for the up to $5,000, I will match whatever comes in.
Every dollar that gets donated, I'll match it.
So that was game changer for us because before that it was drips and drabs, and it started with family and then a few close friends like, I feel bad for you guys. Like, no, it was like,
It's pretty far-fetched, this idea. Like, we're going to go into schools and teach breathing. Like,
aren't we already
somehow we're gonna
breathing
make a
like all day,
business
every
of-
day?
Somehow we're going to
But
make
isn't there a
business of
recognition
that?
that that's actually needed and that
That's
it. Now
children
there
are where
is.
we need to start, and that, a lot
That's
of
it.
anxiety in schools and a lot of, misdirection, and that introducing it to schools is where it needs to begin or really needs to be.
100%.
And I've got to say, though, the interest, when Sarah brought the Breathe Project to my attention, my first thing, because I'm a marketing guy, business guy, and I love the whole breathing, meditation, all that stuff, but I'm like, hang on, so these two, they're making a business from going into schools and teaching breathing, which I think it's awesome. I've had past guests on this show that I sometimes go, you're making money from that. I had one guy a few years ago who's making the squatty potty, which is one of those little stools that you put at the bottom of your toilet to raise your feet so that your knees are above your hips.
Who would ever think that would be
The alignment
a thing?
of the digestive
So you can poo well. It's like, so I love the idea of
Yeah.
like how people make money outside of the fact that, like as you say, Sarah, it's so needed in schools. There's so many things that aren't taught in schools that should be. But I think that's awesome. So you get your $15,000 and you hit by the way, Sarah, I just got to ask you, because what people don't know about Sarah is that one day you'd love to start your own business, maybe, as many would.
Absolutely.
Many would.
It's a dream of mine.
Yes. And are you looking at these guys and
yes.
seeing how relatively easy's unfair, because I'm sure it was really hard, and we'll get to the hard bit in a minute. But what's going through your mind?
Oh, I just love meeting inspiring people, and particularly in the area of health and well-being is a particular interest of mine. And so to see you guys actually doing it and to hear about how you've started it is, that's real inspiration for me.
That's why I got you in here,
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Not true. She's
The
asking you.
realisation of possibility.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
It's-
And it's, following your dreams.
So you hit the road, and in your words, Bode, the shit got intense.
To even get in the van, one of our mates is a filmer, and he was coming around, and he just puts the camera in my face one day. We're in the last stage of moving out of this place. Kat and I have just been arguing, snapping at each other, not even wanting to be in the same room. He's like, how's it going, Bodes? And I'm just turning around and I'm like, so angry inside, like, are we doing this? Are you serious? We're actually doing this together? Like, so shit got intense, and Kat was in tears for days.
Kat?
Are we actually going? I never wanted to live in a van, da-da-da-da-da. And when we actually hit the road, that's when it all started to come out, eh?
Oh.
Yeah, so then we were quite far into the tour in Sydney at the time, and it's like pouring rain outside. It's freezing cold. We're like two cold turkeys laying there in this tiny little van together. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like,
It's called starting
why
a
are we
business with
doing
your lover.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
and
it.
the challenge was, there was so many, just backed up challenge. It was starting a business with a lover. It was like learning how to live a life together in this tiny little space. It was saying goodbye to all of our security and support on the Sunshine Coast of friends, of family, of home, of job, of financials, of all of that. And then to be trying to know, Bodhi had launched a couple of businesses before. It was my first time ever doing anything entrepreneurial like this. So here I am. Actually, I sold muffins once to raise money to go to Mexico.
That was Mexico.
You've done it before.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I lived there for 6 months. I got there. But yeah, so learning how to run this business as well. And then there's the challenge of doing all the business side of it, but then also showing up to schools to teach. But we had to get into schools, and going through the launch of it, people were like, lower your expectations. Department of Education, there's so much red tape. You'll be lucky to get into one school. It'll probably take you 2 years. So then we also had the momentum of when it was the opposite to all of that shit people were saying. And we had 50 schools registered before we launched. And it was like, we were too scared to call the first school because it was just like all flowing. So it's like,
so
we
just
had that behind us.
Just on that point, so you've hit the road, you got your 15 grand from your crowdfunding, you've got some personal stuff going on because you're settling into a new relationship, but you've got 50 schools registered as a result of the crowdfunding and any other awareness work that you've done.
Yeah.
Who have basically gone to your website, is that what I'm guessing? They said, here's our contact details, give us a hoy when you're coming down our way.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. Like, that's warm, 50 prospect, how many converted?
Exactly.
Out of those 50, it'd be hard to tell, but we worked with 60 schools in that crowdfunding chunk. So in 6 months, we worked with 60 schools down the East Coast, from
awesome.
here down to Melbourne.
That's big.
And how did you reach out to them in the first place to register? What was the advertising, or what was the mechanism for them to find out that you existed?
So through the crowdfunding campaign. So it was the crowdfunding was raising funds, but it was also the encouragement and the push of like, we need you as parents, as people in the community to actually take our info pack into your school and say, we need this in our school.
However, there's no schools Googling a crowdfunding breathing project. So did the crowdfunding generate some publicity in the media?
Yeah. So we had publicity in traditional media, social media. We had all sorts go on. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was
different
really...
magazines and newspapers and radios. Like one of our tours, a little bit after this, I think we had 6 radio calls, like one after the other, after releasing a campaign about doing a tour in Mackay. And yeah, we've had a lot of that behind us to sort of fuel it. But also most teachers, most principals are parents,
Yes.
so they don't just care about their students. They get it. They get it for their own kids. Like, my own kids have trouble getting to sleep at night. My own kids come home crying about shit that's going down with their friends, or nervous about their presentation at school the next day, or yeah.
How's your cash flow management going? It's certainly not my strong suit. For the first few years of business, I thought my accountant told me to spend more than I earned. Got that wrong, didn't I? Fortunately, American Express business cards are built specifically with business owners just like you and I in mind. Their cards can be used to pay for everyday business purchases, helping you manage your business's cash flow whilst earning rewards along the way. Both their credit and charge cards provide up to 51 days interest-free, reward points that you can convert to travel, gift cards, or pay down the balance on your card. Plus, some of their cards are tailored for you to earn Qantas or Virgin Australia points directly. Gotta love that. We all need a bit of a holiday, I reckon. To find out more and get your cash flow under control, Google Amex Business after the show. Thanks to American Express, we're chatting with Bodhi and Kat, the founders of the Breathe Project. So you start doing the work, you're going into these schools and what? Saying, hey kids, don't forget to breathe. See ya. Is that kind of what it looks like?
No. So we're going into schools and we're bringing through basically an experience of taking them into anxiety and into a stress response and then leading them out or helping them discover that they can guide themselves out of that. So we're going through with this, like, we're bringing the experience. We're going, here's the experience. We all know when we get anxious and nervous and worried what starts going on in our bodies, but how do we not manage it or try and cope with it or hide from it? How do we move through it? How do we realize that we're more powerful than it and that it's just sensation?
So these are 1 hour workshops or
1 hour?
1 hour.
Yeah, 45 minutes for the younger years.
And how many do you normally have in a workshop?
200, 300, 400 students.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
think our
Sometimes
biggest
more.
group's been 500. And we get 45 minutes to take a typical teenager. We do work with younger kids too, but they're pretty easy. Typical teenager sitting there with their arms crossed, like fucking breathing. Like, I'm already breathing. What the fuck?
These
Who are these
idiots.
two? Like, we didn't even used to wear shoes into school. So it would be like, why are they not wearing shoes? You know?
Yeah.
We get 45 minutes to take them from this to this. The technique. Hand on the belly, hand on the chest. For a teenager, that's a big deal.
Huge.
But by the end of it, the second time in that workshop when we're doing the breathing, very common that 99% of those kids, most of the time, we've transformed all of them
Yeah,
to
tell-
actually give it a go.
Tell us about a moment where you've just gone, this is amazing. You've transformed a young person or someone's come up to you.
Yeah, it almost brings me to tears.
I know, me too. Yes, I think
It
it's
is like tingles through my whole
Yeah.
body. There's so many. And the first one that comes to mind, we were in Rockhampton in a high school up there, and we've got maybe 300 or 400 teenagers, I think year 9 or 10. Actually, it might have been senior years. It could have been somewhere in high school. We've all done the breathing together, and then towards the end, we ask some of these kids to come up on stage and share something personal, and that's directed through questioning. So it's for them to come up on stage and use a microphone and share something personal in front of all of their peers. Like, it's a really big deal. It takes a lot to get them to that place. We just have this kid stand up, and he said he didn't even come up on stage, and the whole audience turns towards him at the back, and he says, I just want to say sorry to everybody. You know, I've been such a dick to all of you. I'm such a bully, and it's just because I'm having a hard time in my own life, and I just want to apologise for any of you who I've hurt. And we're like, where did this come from, you know? And before this, like, Bodhi himself is so willing to go to vulnerable places, and so he's just prior to that shared something crazy deep that, you know, he'd never shared before in a workshop. And so we're sort of setting the tone for it, and then we end up having this other kid come up on stage, and it's like he's about to share something, like joking around. We almost always get the class clown who wants to come up and like say something stupid, like, I can just breathe when I get killed on Fortnite, you know, or something. So the whole crowd goes wild. But he couldn't bring himself to say a joke, and so he said something really real about when his grandpa had died, and, you know, he's breaking down in tears, like bawling his eyes out in front of all of his peers, to the point where he's like can't even walk off the stage. His brothers have come up, his mates have come up to grab him and help him down. And like, to see kids who are willing to actually be real with how they're feeling and to move through that in front of their peers like that, it's, yeah.
I'm too scared to look at Sarah because
Yeah,
I'm
don't.
guessing you're probably crying by the stage.
Yeah, don't look.
Go on, ask your question.
Yeah.
Go on.
I just think what you're doing is actually giving these kids such a safe space to be themselves and helping them to learn how to self-soothe. And it's something that we don't learn in society these days. It's only those that are seeking it out, but you're actually offering it, and that's fantastic.
So to the great unwashed listening to this, who's the kid going, I just breathe anyway. There'll be some people like that. Just explain the straight line between the workshop that you ran and the kid standing up and going, I'm sorry for being a bully.
What do you mean? In like, how did we get to that point?
Yeah, how do you get to the point of teaching someone to breathe and being less anxious, which is obviously the main outcome, right? To manage life's anxieties. This kid has then, it clearly happens a lot where people find an honesty.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand that connection.
Yeah. Have you got something there?
So we're offering that. We're communicating that from the beginning of the workshop. So the breathing is a part of getting out of the mind and releasing any of that anxiety or nerves, but we're offering and asking them deeper questions in themselves. We're asking them to go to that place without specifically communicating it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about bringing that cohort together, like those few hundred kids. Somehow, before, there's all this judgment, there's all this criticism, there's all this bullying going on. And by the end, there's this realization of like, you're just like me. You've got the same shit going on at home with your parents, or you too are scared of what your friends think of you. Like, there's this meeting each other and realizing. For a teenager to realize that is pretty big at that age. Like, oh, I'm not alone in this, you know? It's this real, it just becomes this real, there's this synergy between them.
I'm sorry to bring it back to money, but it is a business show.
Yeah.
How do you guys make money?
Schools pay us.
Can I ask how much?
So, yeah, it starts at about $2,500, depending on the size of the school.
awesome business.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
And when you go to schools, are you targeting like all of senior school, all of junior school, or are they getting you to come back and do different year levels at different times so that you're actually getting repeat business at the same school?
We do, to be honest, most of your listeners would probably be like, that's a bloody rubbish business model.
That's interesting. Why do you say that?
Well, because what we're about is not about creating a dependency from the school on us that we have to keep coming back every term or every year or every week.
So in your mind, the best customer is not a repeat customer. Your work, although kids come through, I mean, you know,
well, we
class
still go back.
Finishes.
Yeah, exactly. Still to do the new year levels and the new students.
You don't want to go back and see someone who you've already seen.
We're not a yoga instructor that's going in, getting paid $50 per class to go in weekly and have 10 kids show up. We're going into a school and saying, we actually want to empower you as a school, as an organism with 500 moving parts every single day from families with all sorts of belief systems. We want to help empower you guys to actually do this every single day yourselves. So the support where we are moving forward in our business is actually continuously training and working with teachers, supporting, mentoring, helping them actually bring it through.
No, it's not such a crap business model, Kat. It's quite a good one. So back to the money thing. So you're getting paid by schools to go in and do your workshops. I understand that you do have an online part of the business called the Mindful Teachers Academy.
Exactly.
Correct? Which is that part where you sort of like you can work with the teachers remotely ongoing. Is that a part of the business that's struggling and new, or is it absolutely rocking? That's
new. That's been just like an internal launch, so we haven't actually put that out there. So that's something that will come out as we feel it's more solid.
Okay, well, tell me about that. What's stopping you from just getting it out there? Why wouldn't you just go with like what they call a minimum viable product and put it out to market and let the market decide whether it's any good?
Good call.
Thank you.
Fear,
Yeah,
judgment, rejection,
honesty,
all of that. Yeah.
So fear that it's no good.
Yep.
Judgment that people will laugh that you're trying to charge for something that you don't think is up to scratch.
Yep.
Oh wow! I would encourage you. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I think just do it anyway, and then if it doesn't work initially, then you can always change that model or move on to something else. I'm also interested if you've got plans or if you started to move into the corporate world with the breathing.
Yes.
From the beginning, we've done a few corporate workshops and trainings and helping, as a whole workplace approach. It's not where our passion is as much. And we've had emails and messages all the time. Oh, you could take this into nursing homes. Prisons need this. Oh, nurses in hospitals need this.
Anyone who breathes.
Anyone who's breathing dysfunctionally, which is 85% of us, we all need it. But for us, it's actually about empowering the young people before they get to that place where it's already almost too late. So rather than these young people ending up in jobs that they don't actually want to do or university degrees that they're only there because their parents expected them to be there, they're actually making that change before. They're realising before, hang on, I can kind of direct my own life here and where I end up. More of a preventative.
It's interesting how the energy changed in the room when you asked about corporate.
Yeah.
Because clearly, what I'm seeing in you guys and what I love about it and what I'd like to understand, what's it feel like to be living on purpose? Because you clearly are, right? I mean, this is a big conversation. I was on emceeing a road show a few months ago that was around HR and recruitment, and there's a lot of talk about successful businesses start with identifying their purpose and living it, and then making sure that each time they employ someone, they also share the same purpose, and that way you build a great culture. You guys are on purpose, right? When you talk corporate, though, it's like that's not where we weren't put on the earth to go and work with.
So
people in suits.
we know we can earn money doing it that way.
Yes.
We know we can up our prices doing that, and we have done that a couple of times. But to actually really successfully reach the goal that we've started out of actually having this embedded in every Australian and New Zealand school as a daily practice, a daily mental health wellbeing practice, it's where does corporate fit into that? I mean, they're parents, a lot of them too, so it fits in that way, but where else does it fit?
I think it's brave. I think brave to say no. But I know when I met you, you wanted to
you talked about how to become a keynote speaker in corporate. That's another revenue channel. That's okay.
Yes,
you can do that, and that's about telling your own story and maybe taking them through some exercises. But it's not doing the whole work that you do. I left corporate many years ago, and I went and worked at a charity called Reach for a couple of years, which helped young people at risk. And I was there in a business sense, but the guy who started it was now late ex-AFL football legend Jim Steins. He'd run these classes for kids who are at risk to find out, to let them discover why they were put on this earth, right? And they were awesome, and they had so much success. And all the parents would come and pick the kids up and say to Jim or anyone else who was in there, any of the leaders, is there something like this for adults?
Yes.
Everybody
wants it.
Yes.
But Jim, bless him, just said...
Stayed on purpose.
Niched, did what he was good at, and as a result, the history tells us.
And then,
a great story.
there's no end of schools in Australia. How many are there?
9,620
How many you done?
We've done 187.
There you go.
Come
We've got a long ways to go.
And so going forward, do you cold call schools or do you email them, or what's your reach out to schools ongoing? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's been our golden rule from the start, actually, that we don't cold call schools. So one of our most successful decisions has been to have an approach that's called the Register a School. And so parents, teachers, principals, students actually go onto our website themselves and register their school. They're emailed the information pack, and it's then their responsibility to be the voice, to be the power behind their school getting involved.
Oh, that's great.
To print it out, take it to their principal or forward it on via email. And it's them who are saying, hey, we need this in our school. Because if you think about a school or any organisation, someone on the inside is already trusted. They're already a valued person of that community, right? And so for them, it's about being actually a part of that change. And us not just sitting behind desks all day, every day, cold calling schools. Like, here's another program.
But then we also, with that, then it's very warm because they've given us also the school contact name of the person that that's their school contact, plus the phone number. So if they don't follow up or connect with us, that school, then we can call and we've got their details and we'll say, hey, Miss da-da-da-da-da, parent Jane so-and-so has registered your school. We're Breathe Project. Just wondering if the information pack got handed to you. And all of a sudden we've got connection.
Because if there is an organisation or an industry in which there are so many Dobermans to get past in order to get to the right person, I reckon schools are it.
School.
If you can get to schools, you can get to anyone.
And those reception staff sometimes are like...
They're the gatekeepers.
They are the gatekeeper, or the
Dobermans, as
bulldog,
Tim
or
said.
the...
I call them the bulldogs.
Well, I
Sometimes.
just on that, I interviewed a guy about 3 months ago who has Elton John as one of his major clients, and my question was like, how? And it's their age. He talks in this interview about all the Dobermans, the baby Dobermans he calls, because if Elton's, there's the guy before Elton, which I think is Elton's husband, he's the Doberman, right? But there's all these baby Dobermans before. I mean, you've just got to develop relationships with them. You've got to understand what they want in order to feel important.
Yeah.
Or in order to feel as though they've made a contribution, and then they give you the next one, and then you finally get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But to get into those schools, and not only that, you are charging, it's quite a price. Again, schools are tight on their budgets, and so I think you're doing an awesome job. What I'm just keen to understand is, how do the parents or the teachers, I know it was through crowdfunding originally, but people are still not sitting there Googling Breathe Project.
Oh, social media.
Social media.
Social media has been amazing for us right from the beginning. We don't have a huge number of followers on Instagram or Facebook.
How many?
6,000 something on Instagram and maybe 4.5 on Facebook.
On, you guys are millennials. Can you step it? Oh, actually, are you? You think you are? I can't remember.
I'm 28, Bodhi's 29.
Digital natives.
Yeah, but
but
we
they're
haven't...
genuine. The people who are on there, there's full
going
engagement going on. You have a look at any of our posts. There's always comments. There's always backing. There's
people believe in it.
Yeah.
And you're also doing events as well, not just schools. Are you doing sort of like-minded events? Yep.
Yeah, we've taught at certain festivals and retreats, and we've just come back from Indonesia actually teaching on a retreat over there. We've taught at a few different wellbeing festivals or yoga festivals or different events like that.
So that's
But we don't-
promotion, I guess, as well.
100%.
Yep.
And I think we've had 10 TV news stories, and
12.
word of mouth is a lot. Oh, 12, sorry.
I've looked at some of your media coverage. If you were to quantify that, it's certainly in the tens of thousands of dollars that you haven't paid for.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Yeah, probably more with magazine
Yes.
articles as well, like
Yeah.
proper written stories in a bunch of magazines. And yeah, the TV ones are perfect because they've got the double whammy as well. They've got that showing, but then also on social media because it's got still some sort of solidness to it because not many people are going after traditional media. It almost gets more reach through the social channels as well.
Are you creating any content? I would have thought content for a business like this is just made in heaven, like ideal marketing strategy.
Yeah, we've dabbled. Nothing consistent.
Fear? Judgment?
Nah, bit of both fear and time. Like when we hit the road, we just hit the road and we just get into schools. We're already in schools aligned, so we spend all of our time in there. When we're not in there, we're booking the next term's tour. So
Okay.
we haven't focused so much on content creation.
Oh, that's interesting.
When we're on the road, we're literally just doing the work, and everything behind the scenes just gets pushed aside.
So does the
and-
business fall to pieces when you're on the road?
Oh,
Used to.
it
In
used to.
invoicing and forward bookings?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it used to. And
I
then-
used to sit in the passenger seat of the car driving from one school to the next, sending invoices, and it was pretty nuts. And now we have a young daughter, a newborn baby, really. But we've had a couple of people work for us, like over the time, who have helped with that sort of administration, school communication stuff.
But-
We definitely haven't nailed that side of it.
That could be a real danger point, I would have thought, if you don't kind of address that. Because, I mean, you're like, the fact that you're not creating content, you're leaving a lot of dough on the table.
Yeah.
The fact that you, I don't know, you invoicing, just addressing inquiries. You could, whether you get someone local or a VA overseas or something. Do you have someone
Yeah.
at the moment?
Not right
No.
now.
I feel like this is a marketing coaching
Yeah.
consultation.
Yeah, but it's great for everybody else too.
Yeah, exactly.
And then do you maintain a house or a home here, or while you're away,
Yeah,
is it more
we
about
do.
still being in the van, or...
Bode's still living on the second bedroom floor.
No, we've sold the van now.
Oh.
Yeah. We did just recently tour New Zealand for 2 months in the South Island working with schools, and we got a bigger van over there because we had our newborn baby, so we had a proper big one with a shower and toilet and stuff. So we're still, living van life in that way, but yeah, our tours, they kind of vary. It's either like that or it's fly in, we stay somewhere and rent a car and go from school to school to school. We kind of do area missions at a time. But we sort of, it's not that the whole business falls to pieces. There's a maintenance going on, but it's not really projecting forward and focusing on these other elements.
And that's where we're at right now, like since we had our daughter, finding out Kat was pregnant, we did one like big hurrah sort of tour and just as much work as we could in term 4. And then we just cut it. We basically didn't do much because I haven't been experienced in the sales and the administration upkeep. That was Kat's role. And before that, we had someone else doing it. So I let it all fall. We didn't work for 3 months together. Then we were trying to pick up the pieces. So right now we're in exactly that place of needing to make these decisions, needing to actually hire the right people if we want to actually keep that momentum flowing.
Who do you look for business advice? Do you have a mentor, a coach?
No, it's actually an area we're really
Yeah,
lacking
okay.
in. I've wanted like business coaching and someone to support us ongoing from the very beginning, and we just haven't. Like, we're working with a guy right now who's consulted with us a couple of times down in Melbourne. But I feel it's an area that could actually help us a lot in all elements, to have someone guiding us and keeping us accountable and thinking of these other areas. But to be honest, it's a real... There's two sides of the picture for us, and we're still unclear. It's like we want to create this big organisation where this is a legacy long after we have died, but we're also at the place where we love the spontaneity and the freedom of it.
Awesome.
So it's challenging,
Enjoy it. Enjoy
it's,
it.
Yeah.
Because, it will grow. It has to. You've identified something that is so needed. You've packaged it up beautifully. So, you know, it's all heading in the right direction. It's great that you've got people you can relate to. I was going to ask you what's it look like in 5 years' time. It's probably far too way ahead to even project there for you, but there's lots you could do. I was just thinking of a guest I had about 6 years ago on this show he called himself the Cuddlist. Oh. Yeah, he's based in New York. He made a whole lot of dough from selling a buffalo wings.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they are, because buffaloes don't have wings.
Chicken.
They are chicken wings. Yeah.
Chicken wings.
Yeah.
No, it's weird.
He made dough from that, and he's a yogi. And he went and started a business called The Cuddlist, and he basically, based on the premise that we are sex obsessed but touch deprived. And he lives in New York, where 85% of people live by themselves. Why am I telling you this? Because it's all about where you could take the business. And what he does now is he teaches other health practitioners how to sell cuddles. And I'm not talking like, 10-second cuddles. I'm talking 1 hour cuddles. Oh. No sex.
Wow.
Right? It was a pretty interesting conversation. So many unanswered questions, which of course I asked.
And he has a successful business based upon
Did you say a successful business?
Yes, successful business.
He has, smashing it. But he's teaching other health practitioners. That's why I'm telling you this, is because, again, maybe it's a very franchisable or licensable business.
Well, they've got the merch, Bodhi sitting there in the T-shirt. So do you do anything with the merch, or is it?
Yeah. We do termly runs with merch.
You do what?
Termly runs. So at the end of each term, we'll just stack the orders that are up. So we don't have them on demand going out from our online shop, but we'll do a termly run.
I love it.
Send it all out.
Everything we do is pretty unique. So it's only on pre-sale because we don't want to have a heap of stock sitting in our cupboards,
That's great.
It's like...
And who's buying the T-shirts? Are the kids buying them? Are the parents buying them?
Parents and teachers, really,
everyone.
and they buy it for them.
Say,
for
just
their kids
breathe.
And that's like the tagline for what we're doing. So when we're in a school, at the end of our workshops in primary school, they all know our marketing. They all know Just Breathe, our communication, our message, and they're the ones continuing it on because they're saying to each other, just breathe, when Johnny's upset or their teacher's getting angry, they'll go, just breathe, miss.
Yeah. Take it home, remind their parents, And when you said, no one's Googling Breathe Project, well, actually they are some, but...
No doubt. Yeah.
But, that word of mouth is more powerful than any of the rest. Especially schools, they're in such a close network, really, even though there's so many of them. They're all in communication and some sort of connection, so...
Well, I think it's a great story.
Oh,
Sarah, are you walking
amazing.
out a little bit more inspired?
I'm very inspired.
Me too. Yeah, we'll buy a franchise off you, okay? We'll be your first franchisees. And I think it's wonderful.
It's funny you say about the practitioner training, actually, because we're from the beginning. Like when people are like, take it to hospitals, it's like, well, we don't want to, but we'll train you to do that. And just in the works right now is an educator training. So other people can then take it into their other fields.
Yeah.
The school's not interested, but the teacher's still the go-getter teacher who wants to make it happen. They can train themselves then.
Well, I think your challenge is to get over some of the fears and anxieties you have around putting stuff out there. The other one is to be courageous by saying no to certain things, because this business could go to a lot of places. Like as Sarah identified, corporate, you could do train the trainer, you could be creating content, you could do online stuff, you could have an entire forum for people who go through your course and then want to stay connected. There's so many, so many places. I think it's really exciting. Well done for making a difference in this world and teaching something in schools which really probably should have been taught whenever school started back in 60,000 BC or something in a cave. I'm going to suggest to any parent listening, get your kids' school involved, and to do that they would go to breatheproject.com.au and register. Simple as that. I would love to see that happen. If you're not a parent, buy some merch.
Yes.
That's all you got to do.
Yes.
That's right.
Maybe start another crowdfunding campaign, guys. And
there's a donate link on our website.
with monthly payments.
Oh, I love it.
You can donate monthly if you want.
Good on you.
Help more kids.
And maybe one tip to leave us with to breathe better and be less anxious in this crazy world.
Can we have one tip each?
You can.
Okay, my tip is to use your nose rather than your mouth. It actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Slower breaths through the nose. What's your tip?
anytime you notice that you're holding your breath just in the day, or your heart is racing and you're feeling a little bit anxious, just to stop and take a conscious or a focused deep breath. Just one really deep breath, as long and as slow as you can.
Sarah, I know you're into this. You've got a tip.
Oh, look, the tip for these guys, or tip for myself?
No, for like a breathing tip. You're a yoga instructor. You're all sorts of things in this
I
space.
think it's that, the slowing the mind and coming back to the breath.
Yes.
That's
Getting out of the
what we all
head.
need to do, yeah.
breatheproject.com.au is where you'll find these lovely two individuals, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Thanks,
Tim and
guys.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
that's
for having
great.
us. Thank you all for listening.
Well, there you go, team. The Breathe Project's Bodhi and Kat. How awesome are those guys? Like, why wasn't that stuff taught in school back in the day? Oh, well, it is now. I think we need to put in a little bit of effort, you and I, to help these guys grow. So please try and support them in any way you can. Get them into your kids' school. If you haven't got kids, find someone who has kids and get them into their school. Buy some merch. They got cool T-shirts, caps, stickers, baby stuff. Even hit them up on Facebook and tell them they're awesome. I just think we've got to get the word out and help them. And a very big thank you to my beautiful Sarah for joining me. And you'll find a picture of the four of us over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/475. Righto, thanks to American Express, here's what grabbed my attention from that chat with Bodhi and Kat. Attention grabber number 1, breathe. Attention grabber number 2, breathe. And attention grabber number 3, breathe. Kind of half joking, half not. I think we've all got to breathe more. If you need to get an Apple Watch, get an Apple Watch. There's heaps of meditation apps on the App Store. A simple little thing that I've talked about in previous shows is jam, just a minute. So every hour, take 1 minute to just focus on your breath. But in doing so, and I know this is a business show, I know it's a marketing show, but in doing so, you breathe well. You oxygenate your body, your blood, everything relaxes, your head clears, and you are going to make better decisions around that beautiful business of yours, and you are going to make better decisions around marketing that beautiful business of yours. So just breathe. Big one in, hold it, big one out. That's what grabbed my attention. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/475 and let me know what grabbed yours.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
You know what that means? Yep, it's time to reward another motivated listener for taking some serious marketing action. And today's winner is... Oh, I like that. A little bit of chilled drumming for the Breathe episode. Today's winner is Tegan Brennan of the candle and wooden decor company Stump & Co. And Tegan says, "Hey Timbo, my name is Tegan Brennan and I have a small startup with my husband Luke. We run a candle and wooden decor company called stumpandco.com.au. I've been listening to your podcast since I found you at the start of the year. Sorry for being late to the game. Never too late, Tegan. Welcome aboard. Your show has inspired me to ask more questions and encouraged me to reach out for advice. Just recently, I sent an email out of the blue to the cookie dough company asking about their experience with a PR company that they had been working with. To my surprise, I got a phone call from the owner, Chris, who then took the time to answer my questions and give advice on his experiences in a very honest way. I wouldn't have done this without your encouragement. Thank you for what you do, Timbo. Tegan, stumpandco.com.au. Well, that's awesome. And I would just encourage everyone else listening to do what Tegan does and reach out to people whose opinion you respect, you want a bit of advice from. The worst thing they can do is say no. The best thing they can do is maybe just respond and give you some advice that will move your business forward. So why not, after this episode, everyone reach out to someone who they'd like an opinion from and see what happens. Tegan, as a result of entering the Monster Prize Draw and sharing some marketing that you've heard on this show that's working, you win some boxing gloves from Fitness Enhancement for when you're not breathing right, you feel a little bit angry. They're valued at $40. You get access to Jeff Anderson's video marketing course for $197. $50 Snackwise sample box, range of Liars non-alcoholic spirits valued at over $500. Asaya Skincare Basins Essential Pack, $79. A $50 Sendal voucher, a $100 voucher to buy some Tradies undies, a Beach People voucher valued at $50. A 6-pack of Mr. Lee's noodles, $30. Canning's Butcher voucher, $100. Got to remember to breathe. Promotion on this show and a backlink in the show notes, which Google love. Well, if you haven't entered the Monster Prize Draw, I'd encourage you to do that. All you've got to do is send me an email, tim@timreid, reid.com.au, and you tell me one idea that's worked in your business that you've heard on this show. If I read it out on air, you win. All right. Well, that almost wraps up a breathtakingly good episode 475 of the award-winning Small Business Big Marketing Show, thanks to American Express. I'd encourage you to check out their extensive range of business cards by searching Amex Business after the show. So now you've got two things to do. You're going to reach out to someone and ask a question or ask for some advice, and you're going to check out Amex Business on Google. Next week, we catch up with a fellow who's building what he believes will be one day the best-known stand-up paddleboard brand in the world. He's got a great story. In setting up his business, he was working for the man, went off and he turned his side hustle of making stand-ups into a business and then got an autoimmune disease which nearly crippled his business. Very interesting conversation. Hey, don't forget there's an entire back catalogue of interviews over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com where you can buy my book, The Boomerang Effect. If you love the show, I hope you do, because you got this far, then let another business owner know about it by grabbing their phone and subscribing for them. Even better, right now, leave a listener review on iTunes. I'd love you to do that. Until next week, I'm going to go off and do some breathing. I'm Timbo Reid. Thanks for tuning in. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.